Hello viewers, this is Dr. Shibani Basu Dubey, Professor and Head, Department of English at the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Today we are here with the topic Indian Writing in English, an Introduction. Now let me start with my presentation. As you can see in the slide, I quote from Salman Rushdie. It is literature which for me opened the mysterious and decisive doors of imagination and understanding, to see the way others see, to think the way other thinks, and above all, to feel. So with this quote by Salman Rushdie, let's set the ball rolling, and we are here with our topic for today's discussion and presentation, Indian Writing in English. It's a special canon of literature. We are here going to discuss writing of Indian writers. Now, what is this category basically of Indian writing in English? It can also be called as Indian English literature. Basically, this canon refers to the body of work by writers in India who write in this language of English and whose native or co-native language could be one of the numerous regional indigenous languages of India. It is also associated with the works of members of the Indian diaspora such as V.S. Naipaul, Kiran Desai, Jhumpa Lahiri, Aga Shahid Ali, Rohinton Mistry, etc., who are of Indian descent, but they belong to the category of Indian diaspora. Now, the question arises that why this special canon of Indian writing in English came into existence. Now, English has always been our second language. We are not the native speakers of English, right? Now, that makes us turn the pages of history, that how did we acquire this English as a second language. Obviously, whenever you are turning the pages of history, 31st December 1600, British East India Company was established, and that was the moment when English crept into Indian subcontinent. Christian missionaries settled in India. Basically, schools and through religion, English language was spread across the country. Company promoted recruitments of Indians. Charles Grant is one name who resisted English language in 1792 to solve the problem of communication gap. I am giving these bullet points as far as history is concerned to make you understand that how gradually English became a lingua franca and it became almost a second language to every Indian, apart from their, of course, native tongue. Now, this Charles Grant, he was one person who resisted English language because he felt that the colonizers should try to inculcate the indigenous language for better administration. So that is why his name is separately mentioned here. Continuing with the introduction, in 1835, English adopted English as an official language. Lord Macaulay, all of us are very, very familiar with this name, pleaded for English in school curriculum. Bengal region was progressive in English language usage. And the first name which comes to our mind when we talk of the promotion, publication of English language is Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who supported English very vigorously. English language and literature was introduced for the first time in India as a part of curriculum at Presidency College, Calcutta. Having said that, gradually, as English language was established in India, obviously it enhanced literature as well. Earlier Indian mythological stories were now translated into English. Kalidasa's Shakuntala or Abhigyan Shakuntalam was translated in English by Sir William Jones. Now, this has set the platform already for the gradual progress and its gradual establishment as a canon. And here I am talking about Indian writing in English. Now, this Indian writing in English, the term used to designate Indian writings by writers in India, has been varied and ingenious, from Anglo-Indian writings to Anglo-Indian writings, Indo-British writings, Commonwealth literature, Indian English, Indo-English. All these terms can be synonymous to Indian writing in English. The racial and ideological suggestions these terms carry have not given them general acceptability. In recent times, the phrase Indian writing in English or Indian English literature has been most widely accepted by literary scholars, and thus we were able to establish our mark in the history of English literature. Now, the renowned literary critic, Professor M.K. Nayak, he has done a lot of research in Indian writing in English. In his book, A History of English Literature, defines Indian English literature as, I quote, literature written originally in English by authors Indian by birth, ancestry or nationality. Now, these three things are to be considered once again: by birth, ancestry or nationality, and that's how we talk of Indian diasporic writers as well, Indians who have immigrated to other nations. Indian English literature pertains to that body of work by writers from India who pen strictly in English language. English literature in India is also intimately linked with the works of associates of the Indian diaspora. I hope by now I have established what Indian writing in English mean. Now, the dawn of Indian English writing arrived with Saki Deen Muhammad, 1759 to 1851. He was a traveler, surgeon and entrepreneur who introduced the Indian curry house restaurant in Britain and was the first Indian to have written a book in English. So, for your information and knowledge, this is the first book to have been written under the category of Indian writing in English. His fame chiefly lies with his work, The Travels of Deen Muhammad, an 18th century journey through India. And this book, as we say history of English literature, when we talk of it, we say Beowulf is the first book to have been written and documented under the history of English literature. Here, if we say that, we can easily say that this book by Saki Deen Muhammad can be considered as the first book to be under the category of Indian writing in English. And here you can see the image of the writer as well as the book. Now, the next question comes, what did these Indian writers wrote when they were writing in a second language, viz. English? But believe me, there is a kaleidoscopic theme which has been incorporated by these Indian writers writing in English. So, easily we can say that there are plethora of themes, there is a kaleidoscopic view which you are able to get a glimpse of when you are reading the writings of these Indian writers in English. To name a few of the themes, we can say it starts from historical, political and nationalist themes, to social realism, to feminism and women empowerment, to Indian diaspora and immigration, individual issues. Of course, the modern themes like industrialization, urbanization, globalization, modernization, feminism and women's empowerment and the changing social dynamics. All these plethora of themes have been dealt by the various Indian writers writing in English. Now, from here on, I am going to give you a few names and few of their prominent works which will actually familiarize you with the various writers who can be categorized under the under this Indian writing in English category. Now, for up to 1949, we have writers like Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, Raja Rao, and you can see on the screen their images and also the images of their books. We come to R.K. Narayan, one of the very famous Indian writer in English. He won the hearts of millions of Indians, and he is also called the Charles Dickens of India because he created that wonderful panorama of Malgudi. We have Mulk Raj Anand, who is also called a social realist because he gave us the glimpse of realities which persist or exist in Indian society. Then, of course, the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore with his famous songs of Gitanjali. Now, from 1950 to 1999, now this is a landmark era because now we have entered into the post-colonial regime. Till now, we were under the colonial era and we could see the glimpses of portrayal of the British supremacy in our writings. But from 1947 onwards, that trend changed and now we learned to take pride in our own cultural heritage, as is a very typical trait of post-colonial literature. And the names are there in front of your screen: Anita Desai, Salman Rushdie, Nirad C. Chaudhary, Ramnath Kak, Nayantara Sehgal, Vikram Seth. I'm just reading out the names. The famous books written by these writers are displayed simultaneously alongside the names. We have Amitabh Ghosh, Kiran Desai. Now these include Indian writers as well as diasporic writers as well, and they have done brilliant job in catching the sentiments and emotions of Indian society. We have Arvind Adiga, we have Chetan Bhagat. They could read the pulse of Indian youth and could portray the same through their writings, and thus they became so famous and so very popular. We have Jhumpa Lahiri and Kunal Basu. Jhumpa Lahiri is the lowland, the unaccustomed earth, and Kunal Basu's The Japanese Wife. All these books have earned a great name and fame for these Indian writers in English. Having said that, it is an established fact that Indian writing in English is now a part and parcel of the history of English literature. It has gained so much of popularity, so much of acceptance worldwide that it can never be segregated as a separate genre. Instead, it is a part and parcel of English literature. Thank you.